Christian mamas, listen up. The way that you were taught about the Bible and Jesus and Christianity isn't enough to cut it for today's kid. What do I mean by that? Well, we grew up in a world where it was commonplace, to hear about Noah's Ark and Daniel and the lion's den and David and Goliath. These days, kids in today's culture are told pretty quickly and pretty young that those are just made up stories, and it's silly to believe that they were actually real. This can totally rock the foundation of what they believe at all and make them wonder, is this even true? That is why I am grounding the way I teach my kids about the Bible in apologetics and the evidence for our faith. Many kids grew up lacking apologetics and lacking the understanding of the evidence for Christianity. They fell away. And so we see that in the movement of people leaving the church, people deconstructing, and becoming a nation of religious nuns. So when I teach my kids about the Bible, I am always very intentional about talking with them about the evidence for our faith, not just the stories that exist in the Bible. So for example, I am very highly focused on the fulfillment of prophecies, which there are hundreds of fulfilled prophecies in the New Testament from the Old Testament. And that's something that I never really was taught much about as a kid. Look at these prophecies in the Old Testament and then you read the New Testament. It's absolutely incredible to see how those were perfectly fulfilled. And that's something we can be teaching our kids from day one. And also, obviously the prophecies go along with Jesus' life and his death and resurrection, but the death and resurrection of Jesus is such a key point to drive home and make sure your kids understand what happened and the evidence for what happened. The number of people that saw the resurrected Jesus, the way people completely repented, the people that nailed Jesus to the cross immediately after he died, repented and said, this must be the Lord. With all this evidence for the resurrection, which we can present to them, we can also let them know, hey, of all the religions in the world, the only one that has a living Savior, a living God, is Christianity. I just want to remind moms, as you're implementing this stuff into your family life, don't neglect apologetics, don't neglect the evidence for our faith. It's so important, and it's going to make a big difference, I think, in the way that kids of tomorrow live out their faith in young adulthood.